Tuesday, February 12, 2019, committee of the whole meeting to order at 5:43 p.m. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilwoman Bailey? Councilwoman Fairclough? Councilman Maldonado? Councilman Ron? Vice Mayor Burgess? Mayor Shelley?
Here. Any additions, deletions, or deferrals? None. First item is tab 1.
Move it.
All in favor, say aye. Next is tab 2.
Mayor, we have a resolution here. I thought you might want to see a presentation from Sasaki and Associates. They came from Boston. Boston? Yeah, so they're here. If you don't mind, they'll give a brief presentation on the final design for Losner Park.
Okay, great.
Is the microphone on?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Alan Ward with Sasaki. We started on master plan for Losner Park about 3 years ago. So we now have advanced the design through schematic design, and we can share that design with you. I think it's important to kind of put Losner Park in perspective, what the goal is here. A renewed Losner Park, which would be expanded, redesigned, could be a real catalyst for downtown Homestead, and in particular, Chrome Avenue. Be part of the larger ongoing series of activities occurring downtown to kind of re-energize downtown Homestead. So it's a key part of that overall strategy. The other part of the kind of goals here is to make a more significant destination, to enhance the programming opportunities at Losner Park. So okay, if you prefer, that's fine. So the existing park is along Chrome Avenue, and this is quite a significant expansion, going all the way west to the police station and then expanding north and south as well. Within the existing park, there is a Veterans Memorial. We have met with that group, representatives, and we are redesigning the memorial in a more interesting and dignified setting within the new park design. There also, of course, are existing ongoing events, which we've incorporated and expanded the opportunities for programming in the park. So existing park, just over 36,000 square feet. This is about a tripling of the size of the park. Of course, the key access, the front door, is from Chrome. There will be secondary access from the south, from the parking area, and then service and sort of back of house functions for the park occur to the north and to the south. There is this very powerful view corridor from Chrome all the way to the tower at the police station. So we've preserved that openness in the design to maintain that view, and located then planting and other elements outside of that view. So we've worked to kind of amplify that sort of powerful view from Chrome that you see today. There are generally 4 areas to the park. Along Chrome is a key part of the program is a new restaurant, which would have significant outdoor dining. That's part of this revitalization strategy along Chrome, to add this new tenant, an active use, outdoor dining, energize the street life. There is an event space and a seating grove related to the theater, also along Chrome. And then in the heart of things is a significant new water feature, program feature that would have something going on there as kind of a show, a display every 30 minutes or so. Be very dramatic, particularly in the evening. That's the real magnet for people in the center of the park. There's also an expanded lawn and stage area like exists in the park today, but in a bigger form right in the middle of things. And then to the north is a significant play area. And this isn't your usual playground. These are sculptural play equipment, very interesting designs. This is to appeal to Homestead's families, to really make the park a magnet for families. And then to the west is a quieter, more passive area, contemplative area where the Veterans Memorial would be relocated. It's a kind of a lawn and seating area. So that's kind of distinctly different than the more active, vibrant parts of the park. So today you see these programmed events on the left, and these are additional opportunities on the right that could also occur in this key park right in the center of downtown. So this is the overall design. I'm going to go through each area in more detail, but you see the fountain is right in the center, kind of where paths converge. The great lawn is just south of that. So I'll go through each part of this park. We'll start with a comparison of that new lawn, stage, and seating area. It's about 30% bigger than the existing lawn, but there also is spillover area to the north, to the east, view corridors to the east. The existing lawn is shown in black on the right, the new lawn in the center. So not only is it bigger, but there's kind of additional spillover space for even bigger events. Now, the other additional programming opportunity is a secondary event space towards Chrome. You see it outlined in violet there. That's a kind of smaller space. You know, some events don't need big spaces, so that's better size for, or right size for those events. And then there's a quieter, more passive area related to the Veterans Memorial for like Memorial Day events. And we just put all these words on the park design to show how the design is inspired by how it's used. It's not just a formal artistic design, it's really driven by how people use it. So the events that occur there, the performance, seating areas outside the theater, the restaurant and outdoor dining, and so forth. So let's first look at Chrome Avenue and what we call the entry plaza, the kind of key views in. The restaurant is at the northern end of this area. Here it is enlarged. So the restaurant is equal areas, indoor, air conditioned, and then significant covered outdoor spaces with fans so that you see that activity as you go down Chrome. It kind of draws people in, contributes to the kind of re-tenanting, we would hope, along Chrome, but also has great viewing to the fountain and into the park, into this secondary event space you see right in the middle. And then there's what we call sort of a hammock mist garden along Chrome. This is, these are kind of making hammocks you see in the Everglades with planting clustered with shady areas, and kind of draws people in with this low fog or mist that would actually have a cooling function, be illuminated at night. It's got kind of a mysterious quality that sort of draws people in and would be programmed with the fountain. So you'd see this illuminated mist along with the fountain as programmed every 30 minutes or so, particularly in the evening. So here's the restaurant. We're trying to make it an iconic building. Our own architects are working on it. And there have been great examples of these restaurants in new parks that really bring life and energy to parks. So a couple examples on the right. It's all designed to be protective, to have shade. Now these are very simplistic 3D views, preliminary views, but you can see there's a big canopy to shade the space, a lot of planting to frame it. So the restaurant controls this zone, the tenant would control it. And it would also open up with a lot of glass that would give it kind of permeability in the better months. Here's a little better view. Once again, still kind of diagrammatic, but you see this dramatic roof structure, lighting overhead, planting that separates the public areas from the restaurant seating area. So this, we hope, will be a real attraction downtown. And we're moving down Chrome from the north now to the south. This is one view in. We're still working on the logo and identity for the park, but you see here's the view right straight through to the tower on the police station, through this planting grove and through the palm trees, so quite open and visible. This is right central in the park. The old town hall is directly behind us, so it's aligned with the town hall, the old town hall. And then this is that secondary lawn space, kind of just south of the restaurant. The theater, Seminole Theater, could use this as well. Okay, the central area has this big lawn and performance space along with the fountain. So there have been a lot of precedents for kind of actively programming these kind of spaces with music, other events, performances, setting up tents. We've been working with Downtown Committee to accommodate all their needs in terms of providing electrical spaces for the tents, getting the service trucks in there. So that's part of this programming effort and design effort to integrate that into the park. There's a covered stage like you have today, but a little broader, kind of on the south side here. So here's a very diagrammatic view, preliminary view of that open lawn area. You can imagine during the day, children might use this for some recreational use, but primarily it's an event space, a green space. The police station is in the background on the right. So the water feature. There's 4 basins. These arcing jets go from one basin to the other in a programmed way, syncopated with music. So this will be quite interesting as an attraction downtown. It's illuminated. There's a central geyser with the water going 50 to 80 feet. It's sort of the crescendo of these events. So this will be a very interesting attraction downtown. So here's kind of a diagrammatic image of that with these arcing jets going between basins. You can walk between the basins, be immersed sort of in the feel of the water, reach your hand up, touch these arcing jets. It kind of sprays a little bit. But they're elevated basins. This is not an interactive fountain. And then you see the geyser on the right, a larger water display that occurs kind of at the end of this sort of show or performance. Sorry, but this is a little slow, this. Okay. Here's a diagrammatic 3D view of this fountain. And then beyond it is this interesting sculptural play area. It just doesn't seem to want to advance. Okay. This is other projects where these arcing jets that have the LED lights built into the basins, and then these have multiple effects. They move in sequence. This is one we did up on the upper right here with, you see the larger geyser jet just at the top of the screen there going off in a much smaller space, actually. So the play area, you see this kind of angled line. There's a series of swing structures that appeals to all ages. We've incorporated kind of very interesting sculptural forms in this play area as well, but all with a lot of shade. We're going to move some of the existing live oaks which are in the park to provide shaded spaces. There are also some kind of tensile structures overhead for shade. Here it is enlarged. The illusion with this blue that you see in the plan, that is the illusion of water. It's actually rubberized soft surface. So you see there's kind of varying depths. You go on that angled path, it's as if there was a boardwalk over the water. We have creatures kind of emerging from the water that bring a level of fantasy, as well as interaction for different age groups, toddler area on the right, this major climbing structure at the top. So this is, you know, contemporary play in a very interesting and innovative, colorful way. This is kind of like the structure we're proposing. You see it's pretty extensive. Kids love this. It's got this netting that you climb on. There's climbing elements on the left here. There's a slide built in. It's in a lime green. We're actually thinking it might be that color, sort of a cool color of the region. Here it is kind of modeled three-dimensionally with this soft rubber surface. The swing structures are under this shade element. These appeal to younger kids all the way through teens and adults even. This would be illuminated at night, so quite interesting as kind of a sculptural piece. All in the midst of this tropical planting with shade around the edges. Here's this path through the illusion of the water, the creatures kind of submerged in the water emerging. Balance is one of the skills you learn in play, so balance beams going through tropical planting. And then at the west end of the restaurant, there's a seating area that overlooks this play area, so families, mothers, parents are here overlooking the play zone. This is a simple structure, kind of clothed in ivy, but this has restrooms for the play area, which is important, the pump room for the fountain, storage area for the park. So this is kind of a key support structure. Oh, the last area then, the Veterans Memorial area and park on the west side towards the police station, somewhat separated by planting. We have reviewed this design with them. It brings the names up off of the ground so you don't walk on them. It's a more dignified, respected way to deal with these individuals. There's a simple lawn there, flags. It seems like the right zone of the park, back to the west towards the police station. It's kind of modeled after, inspired by the design of the 9/11 Memorial, where you have these simple lawns. Names are elevated up to like the height of this podium right here, so they're not on the ground. They'd be carved into the stone, and then you can add names over time. And then there's a planting area with native planting, grasses like you would see in the Everglades, that would separate this quiet, contemplative zone on the left from the active sort of spectacle of the fountains and the play areas, so that you have a quiet zone related to Veterans Memorial. Here's some of the planting that we're proposing. In addition to those few lawn areas, there would be all of these zones of native planting. It's all kept low at 3 feet or less, so you can see into the park for visibility and safety, and then there's a canopy of shade overhead. So a lot of visibility. We don't want to create kind of pockets that you can't see into. So it's either low or high overhead. Here's an overall view. We're kind of hovering over the old town hall. You get the overall picture of the restaurant on the right with its outdoor dining, these kind of hammock planting zones that you walk through with the fog and mist, theaters on the left, the fountain in the middle, and then the central lawn play area on the right. One last view, if I can get there. Okay, so here's sort of slightly oblique view with the Seminole Theater in the foreground, Chrome on the right. So you have this window of opening on Chrome, and then all this other part of the park, the expansive park, opens up in the center. So if realized, we think it could be a significant kind of attraction downtown, pulling people during the day into the evening. The restaurant contributes to the retail and dining options downtown. So this could be a significant addition to downtown Homestead. I assume we open it up for questions or comments?
Mayor, what we wanted to do, what we're trying to accomplish tonight is just to make sure that generally that this final design is okay, because what we would need to do, assuming that you're all fine with this, what we'd need to do is get them into final design to prepare bid documents. What you see here now is estimates and ideas. We won't know for certain until we go out to bid. We see what we have, and then of course that's where the magic happens with the value engineering, assuming we exceed our budget. We budgeted roughly $12 million for this, primarily from park impact fees. So we'll know soon enough. We still want to understand some of the technical details of the restaurant and the fountain, and then they'll finalize that. Once bid documents go in, they'll go out, and we'll have either a contract for you, or we'll have, if there's any changes to the plan, we'll show you what the new changes are proposed. So I'll read this document, and then if you have any additional questions for Alan. On January 13th, 2015, the Mayor and Council authorized the City Manager to enter into an agreement with Sasaki for the Phase 1 conceptual design of Losner Park expansion project and for an option to retain Sasaki for Phase 2 of the project. March 21st, 2018, the Mayor and Council authorized City Manager to enter into agreement with Sasaki for Phase 2 of the project for $1,352,500. The Sasaki team will be at the COW to present the final design. Mayor and Council agree with the final design as presented. The revisions represent an additional $524,000 for Phase 2. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the City Manager to enter into a revised agreement with Sasaki Associates for the completion of Phase 2 of the Losner Park expansion project, which includes schematic design, design development, bid and negotiation, contract documents, and construction administration.
Any questions from council? Or any comments? Councilwoman Bailey.
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate all the attention to detail. I think that it's really nice how it mirrors the islands and the Keys. I love the focal point of water representing our unique background. The play area, I think, is amazing. The only thing I was a little sad to hear was I know the swings weren't 100%. I really like those swings.
Yep.
So I would love to be part of that. I think that cities have had really great outcomes with these installation type art pieces, and not to say that almost everything in this renovation looks like a great focal point, but something to take pictures and hashtags. I saw a really good opportunity for that with those swings.
Correct.
So maybe with that zigzagged archway to allow artists to paint a clear top to it or something to that nature. I really like it. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Councilwoman.
Mayor.
Councilman Roth.
Just a suggestion as someone who's really participated a lot in events that are out there, and vendors and support vendors are always looking for adequate power supply.
Right.
And when food trucks come in, instead of having them operate generators, which creates more noise, maybe having the ability to have some 50 amp service out there that's hidden or camouflaged so that at least it's there and they don't run extension cords across the park and things like that. So just a suggestion in the planning for just additional electrical support, because that seems to always be a problem when we have events out there that vendors can't, or they don't have the ability to plug into any electric use at all. So
Okay.
that's all. I think it's beautiful, and I really hope that we can make this happen. I have a lot of confidence in staff, and I think the planning of this over the last 3 years, in the water feature that's there, it's an attractive thing. The restaurant and all that other areas is really, I think, going to be a highlight for the downtown. And the only other question I might have would be for the police department. Have they been briefed or asked if there's any concerns for safety in this design? Have they looked at this design? Ultimately, the police department is right back there, so if there's an issue, I'm sure we can get pretty rapid response. But that would just be a thought or a comment, just for safety purposes for the park itself. So, thank you, Mayor.
Your
Appreciate it.
your first suggestion on the power is a very good one, and realize we're at 15% design, so these suggestions can now be incorporated into the design as we go forward, and certainly the police department should weigh in on what's happening is right next door.
Definitely. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Has the police had a chance to look at this?
Good evening, Mayor. This is the first that I've seen of it. I can't speak for Chief Paul if he's looked at it or not. I don't see anything in face value from what was presented tonight that would create any issues with us.
We have time, City Manager, if there were an issue, to kind of modify before we get to the next phase.
Definitely.
So, all right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Councilman Maldonado.
Thank you, Mayor. I know there was there's an original design, and how much has it changed from the first time that we saw some conceptual drawings? How much has changed since then?
Yeah, through this process, there has been some evolution of the design ideas, and as we make each adjustment and refinement, we're tying it back into an understanding of the budget limitation, and there are issues of safety associated with some of these more interesting elements, the water, of course, and the play equipment. So as we go through the process, we have been making refinements. It's very consistent with the original master plan, and that's always the case, that there are refinements occur as you go through project design. So the fountain continues to evolve. The principle of having a significant water feature that's a landmark has remained since the beginning. You know, the details still need to be worked out. The budgets still need to get refined for all these elements, so we stay within your limitations. But it's consistent with what we've shown from the beginning.
The only one, I guess the one thing that sticks out to me where it's different, where I know that there was a discussion where the park is, and I know that you've incorporated some features of water and animals showing there. I always thought the original concept and design maybe was to show off the Everglades. Am I correct in saying that? And I kind of envision something like the visitor center where you have this kind of replication of what is Everglades. And so that concept, I see where it's changed, and maybe talk about, just give you a little insight on how that's changed and why.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the very first sketch to the northern part of the park, where we now have this innovative play zone, we had shown a body of water and boardwalk, and it was trying to mimic the spirit of the Everglades. But in actual fact, when you create such an environment like that in the middle of the city, it's really a swimming pool fountain. You know, it's not the real Everglades. And here you have the real thing so close. And then you have the cost associated with the maintenance of that body of water. So it evolved into this sort of play in a tropical setting as a way to draw more families into the park, instead of trying to do a sort of a weak imitation of what nature has done so well out there. So that's why we kind of evolved away from that piece of water and boardwalk into kind of getting people more involved in these play structures in a tropical garden. But that's a good point. That was one kind of evolution that took place from the very first master plan. We think it's a good evolution.
A couple other changes from the original was, the original had the water feature more towards the back end of the park, And so the
Good
thought
point.
was maybe move it and make it a more central feature. Also, since the restaurant concept came about, we wanted to try to get the fountain and the restaurant as close together as possible, so people who are in the restaurant potentially can see the fountain as well. Also, to make sure the fountain can be seen as close to Chrome as possible, but we also want to draw people in. So if you put the fountain too close to Chrome, this is not much of a draw. The other thing was, at one point, we were thinking about the Veterans Memorial coming here, but after a lot of discussion, we found a place that we felt was close enough to the original that it would kind of just have its right place. What we didn't want in the original design was for the Veterans Memorial to be into an active space. It should be more of a contemplative space. So we met with a bunch of the veterans and the groups, and we think we have a very strong consensus for this design. And then finally, the last thing is, the other one had a place for food trucks.
Right.
And then we were thinking maybe the food trucks belong on the street side.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, because when I kind of look at this design, and I'm trying to think how, you know, for instance, the Military Appreciation Day, for instance, that's pretty much on Chrome Avenue for the most part. Some areas used for you know, the small little booths that you have there. I don't know how that incorporate or how that's going to change the nature of that type of environment. So that's kind of why I see the changes, and I'm trying to get a good understanding to make sure that it just is going to work with what we have existing. And then, you know, how is this, when we have this change, when this is developed, you know, how is that going to affect, you know, our other events? Because again, a lot of the events are held exactly on Chrome Avenue. So, you know, how does this, how is it going to change the way we have events? Is something that I want to consider.
Yeah, also, we met with the Main Street Group, and they gave us some very detailed suggestions based on their own operational issues. So they did mention a lot of the power supply. So as they get to the final details, what we're trying to do is balance addressing their needs without putting too many in there, and we end up with other issues. So that's something that we have to address. The other piece to this is the timing, depending on when the bids come in, and the value engineering, if there's any needed. The big unknown is the permitting process, which the earliest estimate we've heard is 3 months, potentially as long as 6 months. So we're looking at potentially finding expediters to help us with that process. And then the other question becomes, right now it appears that the garage will be available sometime between August and September, likely September. We met with the theater operator, the owner of Showbiz, Monday. Is today Tuesday? Tuesday.
Yeah.
We met yesterday. And right now he is targeting October to open. He'd like to occupy the space in September and have the grand opening towards the end of October. And so in the meantime, we have the Seminole Theater that's relying on the parking lot in the back. And we also spoke to Axiom about the construction of the garage and when they felt that would be accessible to the public, because there's really two different construction pieces. One is the entertainment complex, and the other one is the garage and the retail surrounding it. He thinks likely they won't be available, the garage wouldn't be available until September. So what we're going to try to do is fold this in. What we don't want to do is disrupt all that parking if we can help it, but also not unnecessarily delay it. What we don't know is, does it take 3 months or 6 months to get permitting? We don't know whether value engineering will be necessary, depending on what happens with the bids that come in. And then finally, we assume the entertainment complex and garage will stay on schedule. Right now, we've been blessed, no issues, and things are going along very nicely. We've also seen something else that's been a pleasant surprise, as the building at the corner next to the Seminole Theater, the old Club Hayes. We popped our heads inside, and they are building a beautiful restaurant and bar area inside. The menu is already online, and it looks very promising. It's like our real first genuine example of a halo effect that's coming from the project. So that's what we want to see. We want to see from the entertainment complex having the halo effect go down as far as Chrome Avenue as we can. So having that first corner show a real sign of life. They're planning to open in February. All the more reason why we want to make sure that the parking is available, because we want them to be successful as well. Seminole Theater, they had a sold-out show this weekend, Shanghai Acrobats, and they are doing really well from the time of the study to now. The study showed it would be a successful venture, and here we are now 3 years into it, and they're really doing great. Over 16,000 people have sat in those chairs with 450 seats. We also know that the dance studio, which is right adjacent to Losner Park, they've been renovating that building, and they're opening, Kamitra, what's the latest? They're opening when? They're open now. So pop your heads in. We saw the outside look pretty good. And so there's a whole lot of things going on. We want to do with the restaurant, create another point of synergy, the fountain being a major attraction, so that at different times of the day, you still have critical mass, and we pull people from the garage out onto Chrome Avenue as best as possible. So that's why all these different hubs of activity have been designed there to really create that halo effect.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Yeah, just myself as well. I mean, I like the concept. I think it is a more dynamic design than the original design. It's a more active design. It has a lot more options and features and capabilities. You know, I will echo Councilman Maldonado's, you know, obviously the gateway community and being linked to our national parks is important to me. And so I would like to see maybe a little bit more connection in some way, whether it be because of art, you know, as Councilwoman Bailey recommends, maybe it's art that talks about the Everglades and Biscayne. And the other thing too is that, you know, a lot of times we focus so much at Everglades National Park and we forget about Biscayne National Park. And it's the fact that we have both of them together that kind of makes us a unique city versus just one or the other. So I would like to see some way to maybe incorporate some small features into the park or small design elements that kind of remind you that we are a gateway city and that we are surrounded by two national parks.
If I chime in,
Go ahead,
just
Councilman Maldonato.
kind of the thought of the original one was that, you know, we were kind of showing how we are surrounded by the Biscayne, the Everglades, and the Keys in Miami, and so somewhere besides the water elements, is there some way that we could incorporate that, you know, these, not so much, I mean, not a full effect, but something that would point visitors that are here enjoying the park, you know, some of that, you know, to be able to show some of the Everglades and the Key Biscayne National Park, what feature it is, but something that kind of, at the minimum, that would point or acknowledge that and try to.
And one thing that's kind of sad for Alan here is Alan has a whole team that has really put a lot of detail into a lot of these nature themes that you're talking about, and there's a ton of slides already on the type of design features he's included. Kind of asked him to keep it as short as possible, but what we can do is send you some of the elements that they've already designed. He's got all kinds of different vegetation plan that pay homage to the different nature that surrounds us, as well as some of the critters and the creatures and the alligators and all the other things he's got going in there. So we'll send that to you as well, because he's got 1 or 2 people that have spent a whole lot of time hand selecting special. Did you want to talk a little bit about
Well,
that?
we also have this signage and wayfinding information component to be integrated into the park, and at key locations, for example, maybe at the north and south end of Chrome along the sidewalk there, is it the opportunity to tell fuller story about not only what's happening along Chrome and Homestead, but these other attractions in the region. So that could be significant elements to kind of inform people who are on Chrome or headed to the trolley, for example, about these other
Did you
places.
want to
So
talk
I
a
think
little
it's
bit
a good
about the
suggestion.
landscaping, though, and some of the...
Yeah, some of the other elements that we have been looking at is, and we did this in other parks, where school children would come here during the day and we incorporate like 20 to 25 elements that are related to birds, for example, and the kids have to go through the park and find these 25 birds or bird tracks or signs of these animals. So you can interject some learning and integrate aspects of the natural environment into the park in kind of a sculptural, interesting way. So that was part of our thinking as well. And those animals west of the restaurant were 5 times their actual size, and were going to be done fairly realistically. So you have this partially submerged giant alligator and turtles and so forth. So I think that would be a very intriguing component that does make a connection and a tie, but there's also just basic information. Where's the trolley? Where are these other, we're in the middle of this area that has such significant destinations in the region. So a good suggestion. I like it. I like it.
These alligators
Yeah.
are here because of our
Exactly.
Thank you. Councilman Burgess.
Thank
Vice
you.
Mayor Burgess, sorry.
I guess my question is, as we do this design, yes, that we are trying to attract people there, but we've also got to remember that, and I guess, tell me, if we're trying to attract our citizens down there, then most likely they've already lived the Everglades and the Biscayne National Park on a basis. So we've got to make sure we keep enough things, elements in there of design and stuff that our local people that are attracted
Right,
down there
right,
have plenty of
right,
things
right,
to do.
right.
And so if we lose, like the certain swings or whatever, I think that, because we're trying to attract the people that are paying for this, which is the
Right,
citizens around here. And just my thought is, we got to make sure we keep enough things in there to attract them and not just try to keep going after people that are driving up and down Chrome Avenue headed somewhere.
Yep, I think it's important to remember that the design is this framework of what's possible, but there has to be a significant programming effort undertaken so that local citizens come back to this park time and time again.
And that's
So
my
there's,
point, is not
yeah,
to lose that.
So it's the programming part of it that's critical, because you now would have 3 venues within this park, where in the past you had 1. So there are more opportunities to engage the local community in these regular events. And we've done these parks where the goal was to have something happening every single weekend in the park or the square or the plaza, so that you come downtown and there's something new, different, that's engaging to the local population, not just visitors.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Vice Mayor. Any other comments or questions? No?
So we just need to know if this goes on the consent agenda?
Yeah.
And
Well, I
then-
got to open it up to the public, I guess.
Oh, yeah, there was one other thing, is just to make sure, I wasn't sure. The next time you'll see us, barring any major changes, is with the construction approval. That assumes everything goes perfect.
Okay.
If something changes, we'll come back to you.
All right, this is a public hearing. I'll open up to the public. Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional questions or comments? No, do I have a motion? Moved and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes carried. Tab 3.
Okay, we have, similar to the last one, we have presenters here, Library Systems and Services. They're here to present. We've had extensive discussion here on the floor regarding the Cybrary project. And I sent, in your material is a phasing plan for Cybrary. And the idea is to try to preserve some of our funding sources that are time sensitive. So what we're trying to do is to phase this thing. I wanted to present first the operator for the library services part, which was what we're proposing for tonight. The next item you'll see would be likely next month will be the actual construction agreement between the city and Axiom Construction. What we're looking for from them is a guaranteed maximum price to construct for the city a 4-story, roughly 50,000 square foot facility. And the first floor and a half, we call it a 4-story building because the first floor and a half really is the height of 2 stories. So it's a 4-story building with the first 2 floors really being the first floor with a mezzanine, roughly 18,000 square feet. What we wanted to do is utilize the available funding sources that we have that are primarily outside funding sources that have time frames to them, kind of use it or lose it. Primarily, the bulk of that funding is HUD funding. And so what HUD wants to see is that when they give you federal funds, that you spend it and you get something that you promise open. And so what we wanted to do is get as much of that money spent as possible. So the available funding sources, assuming our negotiations are finalized by next month, would basically cover the construction of the 4-story building, with the first floor and a half being as close to the original concept of Cybrary, with the heavy component being the library services part. The landmark agreement would also come to you, which for phase 1 would involve the FF&E for the interior. So Axiom would do the core and shell and the build-out, the core and shell for second and third floor, and the build-out for the first floor and a half with Landmark doing the FF&E in partnership with LS&S. Phase 2 comes when Landmark finalizes their investment, because the second and third floor is where a lot of the other attractions would be, and then we would have a full integrated facility. At one point, we had talked to you about Phase 1 potentially being with the Miami-Dade County Library System, operating the library functions. The difficulty with that was that we tried to get a term sheet with them, and the pace of the negotiations had a trajectory that was jeopardizing our HUD funds. And so we had expected a term sheet finalized by Christmas, and as of mid-January, we still couldn't get agreement with them. And the crux of the issue with them was some guarantee that they would build the library portion of that in time for us to satisfy our HUD funding requirements. And so the risk was, if we couldn't get that requirement, if we couldn't get that guarantee from them, and we spend all this HUD money and then they don't open up in time, we could have to end up paying HUD money back. So that didn't seem like a great option for us. In the meantime, we had discussions with LS&S, which we've actually been having conversations with them for several years now as the whole Cybrary concept came along, because Landmark Entertainment, which was going to be the operator of the overall facility, knew that the library services portion of this was going to need some expertise. And so we had looked at LS&S and had visited some of their facilities to see, because their reputation is really good with operating libraries. So we had this conversation with them about would they be able to participate in a Phase 1 and Phase 2 concept. Phase 1 being the fit out of the first 18,000 square feet and operating the library services component of that, and then assuming there is a Phase 2, that they'd be a partnership with that as well, with some investment dollars from them as well. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to bring them in, have them explain a little bit about their company, and also answer your questions. And also inside this packet is kind of the structure of the deal. We still have some negotiating to do with the lawyers, but we wanted to get them here as soon as possible. So if you're comfortable with this, we can finalize our deal with Axiom as well, finish up the drawings, and then go out and start, hopefully, construction sometime in April.
We've already lost some dollars because of the delay, correct?
Well, the delay came in the new market tax credits, which is also basically free money from the federal government if you meet their criteria. The banks were looking for date certains on the closing date, and unfortunately, the library, with the county system, we couldn't get a date certain. So it just became, we tried to hang on to it as best as we can, and every week on the call, it was like, they would just ask a simple question: when will it be approved by the county? And we couldn't answer the question. So the county has got their own process, and the good news is we have briefed them on LS&S's involvement in this Phase 1, and we do have some possibility of recapturing some of those funds. No guarantees, but at least we're still in the game.
Yeah, I think that was the point. It's just that we tried as best we could at the county level, and because of those delays, because we didn't get our term sheet, I mean, we've already lost money with the potential of losing more. So it's good that we have potential partnership here. So
We still would like to have some sort of discussion with the library system, assuming you're all comfortable with this arrangement, so that where there's a seamless transition between the current facility and the new facility. So in an ideal world for the residents of Homestead and the surrounding area, it would make sense for there to be a nice, seamless transition. That obviously will be up to them.
right, okay. Go ahead and introduce
Great.
yourself and give us your presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. I'm Todd Frager. I'm the COO with Library Systems and Services. My colleague Debbie Joy, Director of Library Operations. So we thank you for giving us an opportunity to talk a little bit tonight about the Cybrary and our operation of libraries throughout the country. So 2.5 years ago, as City Manager Christus mentioned, we came across this concept of a Cybrary. We heard the vision and immediately we were drawn into the conversation as we were always looking for the future of libraries and how they're going to move forward. So it is definitely our intent to join this partnership of Landmark, the City of Homestead, to move the cybrary concept forward. So as you probably already know, the cybrary is going to be a state-of-the-art facility that incorporates the best of traditional libraries into a new concept that brings unique educational entertainment. Combining traditional library offerings, the cybrary provides interactive attractions, new digital educational and entertainment experiences, and a place for fun events and community activities. The centerpiece in Phase 1 will certainly be the circuitry. It's an iconic artistic homage to the legendary Tree of Knowledge. In addition, the pop-up theater, which quickly converts from a book selection and section into a lovely theater, is ideal for countless activities, including live shows, meet the author nights, magic shows, and children's activities. In addition, in Phase 1, we're very excited about Book Mountain, which will be a children's library section for children to enjoy. And we certainly believe that the cybrary is going to be a destination and tourist attraction throughout Florida, but also we know it'll be the cornerstone of the local community. So I'd like to give you some background on LS&S. These logos, basically 24 logos of our current customers. We work with anyone from the Library of Congress to libraries throughout California, Oregon, Kansas, Tennessee, Texas, and in the state of Florida. We operate 84 public libraries around the country. We're actually the third largest consortium in the US, just behind New York and LA. We have a large base of satisfied customers, and locally, we actually have 2 highly referenceable customers in Osceola and Sumter counties. We actually employ over 1,000 professionals, of which the majority are library staff. We seek the proper blend of traditional MLIS employees as well as talent that fits the local programming and specific needs of the communities we serve. We never brand our employees as LS&S employees. They're always branded as the local facilities. LS&S obviously believes in our employees. We offer competitive wages to the local workforce, affordable and comprehensive benefits and retirement programs. We offer extensive professional development, tuition reimbursement, and loan forgiveness for our employees. So at the heart of our model, it's based on partnerships. And we take great pride in all of our relationships, anything from the Friends of the Library to local communities, the school districts, the City Council, library foundations, library volunteers. Well, discussing our relationship with our existing customers, what gives us the greatest amount of pride is the term they always use, which is we're trusted partners. Volunteers are critical to all libraries, including the cybrary. We certainly plan to engage to increase volunteerism throughout the cybrary and work with the city to coordinate the use of volunteers. What makes the model really work and what's critically important is really local control and local ownership. We follow the city's governance. We provide outsourced staffing and support. All of the assets remain property of the city. The cybrary will provide access to all citizens of Homestead.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So our work in Florida, we are very proud of. In Osceola County, we began a partnership in 2012. That's a $5.6 million system with 6 locations. One of the first things we do is develop a strategic plan for the system, and we did that in Osceola. And a big part of that was cross-coordination for renovation of 3 of their locations. Focus on STEAM. Our library programming is really important, and a big part of that is STEAM programming for children and teens. A big focus in Osceola County, we have more than 400. The GROW program there provides visits to childcare and voluntary pre-kindergarten sites across the county. So there's lots of emergent literacy going on. Language and citizenship are important programs also in the county. Ongoing classes in English and Spanish are offered at all locations throughout the year. Programming for people with special needs is also important, and we work closely with the Communication Center for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing and the Center for Independent Living. Libraries are important places for arts and culture, and certainly that's true in Osceola. Celebrating the arts and a separate Comic-Con event bring more than 1,500 people to the libraries every year. Oop, back up. So as noted, we've renovated libraries across the country and in Osceola, several just recently. Fred Hawkins is a commissioner in Osceola County, and a quote from him, very happy client. Also near Orlando is Sumter County, another LS&S partner. That is a $3.1 million system with 5 locations, and we have partnered with them since 2013. The library in Sumter County does a great job of knowing their community and promoting community involvement. Many very active volunteers. They have Friends of the Library groups, and they participate in lots of outside of the library events. Earth Day, Sumter County Fair, and Government Day are just a few. Staff enjoy personalized program development. There's special emphasis for patrons on reading and lifelong learning. Technology is a really important part of libraries and certainly Cybrary, and technology services are integrated in all of our libraries. In Sumter County, we saw a 55% increase in the kids collection since we started that partnership in 2013. The administrative head there is Leslie Smith, and she noted those strong increases in circulation, program attendance, and registered cardholders. We in library believe very deeply in outcomes and analytics, and we measure ourselves all the time. And you can see here in Florida, it's trending in all the right directions under LS&S partnership. We're really proud of our work there. As we mentioned, programs are really the heart of the public library, and they bring people in. This list represents just a sampling of the thousands of programs that happen every day at LS&S libraries. All of these programs and all of the work and research behind them will be readily available to the Cybrary and the City of Homestead. Our staff work really hard, and we're very proud of them, and they have won lots of different ALA and awards across the country. And another way that communities show their support is through financial support of public libraries. We partner with friends groups and foundations and raise additional funds for our libraries. Those are just a few examples. Grants are another important way that we can supplement budgets, and our library staff pursue and win grants, hundreds every year. And again, these are just a few examples. Many are for emergent literacy, teen literacy, and adult literacy. So LS&S is a for-profit company with a social mission, and it's important that we're a viable business. And we want to, it's important, and we are a very viable business, and we look forward to serving the community here in Homestead. So I'll turn it over to Todd. Thank you.
So one of the ways that we make it work is basically as our size and our purchasing power that allows us to optimize efficiencies while reducing costs to our customers. We invest in creating new and innovative approaches to libraries such as the Cybrary and other technology and analytics to better engage our patrons. We're investing in the future of libraries and the possibilities that can become for future generations. So overall, again, we bring 30 years experience to the Cybrary, operating the 3rd largest consortium in the United States, bringing best practices, economies of scale, expanded programs throughout the country, flexibility, creativity, and a partnership through the city of Homestead. I think we'll end with a video that really speaks from the voice of our customers, which is appropriate for you.
I think everyone in this country is recognizing that they need to do more with less, but yet our customers are not expecting less. One of the best things about being in a partnership with LS&S is that they're always ready and willing to go above and beyond the day job to provide services to our communities.
LS&S has come in, has been wonderful partners. They've been able to expand services through different grants. There was a grant that they were successful in applying for the Netter Library branch. So they applied for in this branch, and that has helped us fund our Veterans Connect and our Veterans Resource Center.
They have a very good understanding of a library and the way it should be run, whether it be personnel, whether it be customer service, whether it be IT.
Better quality service, better selection, better computer system, and staff there that's very helpful and friendly.
Our new smartphone application, that's all coming from LS&S. With the app, they'll be able to download audiobooks, they'll be able to reserve books, they'll be able to see what some recommendations based on those interests are.
The Techmobile was brought on to take the library services out to the community. Library System Services was able to help design the Techmobile, develop the graphics that are on the outside of the Techmobile. They have Wi-Fi services. They have iPads that you can go and utilize. They have a 3D printer.
I rely heavily on them to provide me with the new trends, best practices, anything that we may be able to implement at any of our branches.
It's been a tremendous pleasure working with the professional staff at LS&S. It seems that any time that there is a problem or a question or there's a need to want to do something better or to expand our participation, that they have some proven and exciting method or exciting resource.
You can't ask for a better partner than LS&S.
Thank you.
Mayor, a couple of things I wanted to add was the reason why we feel comfortable recommending them after a lot of due diligence is what I witnessed and some of our staff witnessed with them is there's a customer service element to their operation that we think is going to be very important as we incorporate the final Cybery product. Also, we feel that on the library services part, they really have the national experience and reputation for understanding that component as well, because there is a certain science to it as well, and understanding what type of collection to pick, how to adjust. But the other piece which falls into the customer service element is, which I was very impressed when I saw the analytics that are involved with how does a book stay on the shelf. See, a book in their facilities has to earn its keep. So what ends up happening is if it sits there too long and people aren't, if it's not circulating, at some point it'll find its way out the door and it'll be replaced with something else. So what we want is a very dynamic facility that has a collection that people want to see and that attracts more customers. And it's, I think the last time I had a conversation with the current facility, it was somewhere between 80 and 90% of their collection is not circulated. So I think that becomes a problem over time if you want to create a dynamic environment. The other piece was we were concerned, we don't want to pick an operator and then end up finding out that we don't have an operator. So we felt that their almost 30 years in business was important too, because they do have the track record. They have a corporate feel in terms of the customer service and the accountability standards as well. So with all that, we felt like they would be a good partner for us for the Cybery concept. And one other thing that I think is important to mention, and that is they're as excited about Cybery, which is reinventing the library, than anybody else. So you have plenty of defenders of the status quo out there who don't really want to reinvent the library. They're comfortable with the status quo. And what I like about them is they have the professionals that understand library sciences and the value of it and all that it brings to a community. But then they also have people who are, and in many cases, the same people that understand we need to do something about libraries soon, because if we're not careful, they'll end up dying on the vine, because with technology and all the changes that we're seeing, there becomes less and less reasons for people to go to libraries, and we want the opposite. We want more and more people to go, and this to be a real community center for all to learn and educate in an entertaining way. So I do have Matt here who can outline the terms of this contract. Obviously, all this is contingent on you approving the construction in March, and so none of this would be in effect until we know for certain that all of that is a go. But Matt, did you want to just go down some of the major terms?
So this deal is structured to give the experts the lead to basically run the facility and take on all of the operational responsibility. The city's basic responsibilities will be to provide the infrastructure, the FF&E, the computers, the hardware, and the experts will determine, or in coordination with the city, what the collections look like, what programming is available. They'll handle the IT and the management of the library website, things of that nature, all for sort of a flat fee. It's just under $900,000 per year. That agreement will go on 39 years. That's the initial term. There are some extensions for single years after that. Really, the city's obligations here are to provide them with the infrastructure they need to be successful and the ongoing management fee. And from there, we're going to defer to the experts and how they operate the facility.
Similar to the Seminole Theater, the philosophy here is the city owns the building, but acknowledges that it really doesn't have the talent or expertise to be running the facility. So bringing in an operator to operate the facility and lend their expertise, not get involved with the minutia of operating and inserting political decisions into things that are more technical in nature, but also acknowledging that it is a city facility, so we're responsible for electricity and the maintenance. We think the maintenance will be low the first year while everything's under warranty and as the facility gets older. On the other hand, once we have phase 2 figured out, assuming all that goes well, some of this may end up changing anyway, because the operator landmark of the entire envelope, then things may change a little bit, other than LS&S's relationship with the city will still be there, because we have an obligation with the HUD money to provide free library services. And so the free library services component of this will be there, whether there's additional paid attractions beyond that. And we'll speak a little bit more about what you can expect on the first floor and a half next month, because we anticipate, assuming the new market tax credits we find a little extra money for, we think we can still incorporate some of the virtual reality and augmented reality into the first phase. But I don't want to promise that until we know for certain what happens next month.
Okay. Yeah, you answered my question, which was comparing this to our operator agreement with Seminole Theater, because I know when he first started, he said he'd be our employees, and so I just wanted to make sure there was some sort of more of a legal connection versus, say, employer-employee connection, because of the same reasons, the separation of the programming and all those things that you want to have happen in a library that maybe you don't want policymakers dabbling in. So, any questions from council? Councilman Roth.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, George, just can you briefly explain how we're going to pay for this in the long run, just so people understand? There will be some changes in the future if this is passed that it's not going to affect them drastically, but there's going to be some changes. So if you wouldn't mind just briefly explain how this is going to be paid for.
Sure. Every homeowner in the city of Homestead, property taxpayer, pays right now a county library tax, which the millage rate is 0.284. So what that does is it generates, and the way the library districts works is these satellite libraries, the county library system funds them. They kind of draw a circle around the map and people who pay within the library district are guaranteed some sort of library service. So we pay our .284, which I think is roughly 10, 12, 14 bucks, depending on the value of your property, but it's around that range. And then could be more, could be less, depending on the value of your property, but you're paying that to the county. And if you live in Florida City, you're paying a library tax as well. Some of the unincorporated areas that surround us, you're paying that library tax. They pool all that money, and they use that to fund the Homestead Library branch. Under this agreement, because the reason that library branch is there is 40 years ago, the city entered into an agreement with Miami-Dade County Library System, Miami-Dade County, which basically allowed them to build a building on city land. And in exchange, they would be able to sit on the city land for free as long as they were operating a county, a Homestead Library branch. The city had the right once a year to exercise its right to exit the agreement. And right now, that's sort of where we're at, which is assuming you approve this, you approve the construction, we're a full go for this concept, and we have a projected date of opening. Our hope is to have a seamless transition between the two entities, and then in essence, unplug the Homestead residents from the library tax, and basically that revenue would go into this facility. So roughly $800,000 right now is collected from that library tax. So that would instead go from the county and instead go to the city. How we do that, there's several mechanisms that the lawyers are still working out. In an ideal scenario, the tax bill that says library tax would still say library tax, and where it is on the bill is going to be more of a perception issue. But in essence, the money that the Homestead residents are paying to the county would instead go to this facility. The county would unplug from that building that's there now. The building is theirs. Part of our agreement is that there has to be appraisals, and if the city appraisal and the county appraisal has a 10% or more difference, then there has to be a third-party appraiser. And then from there, there's some sort of a settlement on the question of how much the city would have to pay for that building. So we have several ways to pay for this facility, one of which is the bulk of the money would come from the library tax. And then we have some projections. We won't have to deal with this until fiscal year 2021. So, because it's going to take at least a year to open the facility. The likelihood is it'll be sometime in spring or summer of 2020, and your new fiscal year starts October of 20, but that's the fiscal year 21. And then we'll come back to you once we know what our dialogue with dialogue is with the county. One way for them to do this transition, which we think is the easiest way, is they continue to collect the library tax and then just pay us the money that they collect for this. And in an ideal world, there's a reciprocity agreement with the county, because this is what we think is good for the taxpayer, both the local taxpayer and everybody within the Miami-Dade County Library System. We believe that with a reciprocity agreement, the patrons in the surrounding areas, Florida City and some of the unincorporated areas, they would be able to go to our facility, and they would have all the rights as any of the members are in Homestead. And we think that would satisfy the Miami-Dade County Library District's responsibility to provide library services to the region. If that's the case, that would save them, we think, substantial dollars, because if they still have an obligation to provide library services to Florida City and the unincorporated areas, they may end up having to build a satellite facility someplace or rent a storefront and fit it out with its own collection. We don't think that makes any sense when we're going to be providing likely the best library in the state of Florida. So, but that's something that they're going to have to process on their own and think about on their own. So I don't really want to promise yet what the actual mechanism is, but the dollars are there. What we don't intend to do is ask for any additional monies. It's the .28 is the .28, and that's the plan at this point.
So basically, we're going to get a entirely new library system. It's not going to cost any more than it's already costing for what we have on US One now.
That's the plan, and we also like their strategy of additional grants, because that's another benefit of a company that understands the rules and regulations. Is the state of Florida has certain regulations that it requires for cities, municipalities to be eligible for grants, but then there's also other funding sources out there, and we fully expect them to take advantage of all those. It's free money sitting there. You just have to meet their criteria and you have to apply. And so that was the beauty of this whole concept here is at the very least for phase one, you're talking about a building that's going to be built with primarily outside dollars that don't come from the local property taxpayer. And to be able to get a brand new state-of-the-art facility with a top-notch operator, we think is a real, real benefit to the community.
No, and I like the concept, and I do have a question for you. One of the questions that one of the citizens asked me was a book sharing program, or books that you may not carry or titles you may not carry in your library here, the ability to track those books down and bring them into the system, whether it be through another library that you're connected with in Osceola County or wherever it is, that they have that benefit now with the county system where they can move books around to meet the needs of certain individuals in the city. So if do you have a program that works that way?
We do, and what we've accounted for in the cost of running the facility is having a program with outside providers, such as OCLC is one of the providers out there, who works with a lot of remote libraries, says obviously you're not going to keep every book in your collection, but through our system you have access and you have visibility to those materials. You just put in a request, and within a day or two the materials arrive, and then you pick them up at your hold desk.
Right, and I noticed, I mean, this is kind of new to me, learning the requirements and conditions you have to work under when it comes to staffing a library. You have to have, I learned a new term today, it was MLS, which to me is multiple listing service, but in the library system, it's, what does MLS stand for? Master of Library Science. And is it a requirement through state or federal that each library is staffed with an MLS?
Microphone.
That can vary across the country. At LS&S, we ensure that every library director has that MLS or MLIS, Information Science degree. So we are very committed to library professionals and the library profession. I'm an MLS myself, so I'm very proud of that.
Can you explain, though, why you feel that that's important? Why is an MLS considered an important part of both the collection, deciding on a collection, and also the operations?
Absolutely. So an MLS librarian is trained to, first of all, get to know the community and understand the patrons in the community. And so that's really step one in operating an excellent library. You talked about collection earlier. We want to make sure the collection is both, provides all the materials that the people in our community might want, and has a subset of materials that are really important just to that community. So here in Homestead, I'm sort of guessing, but perhaps things, study of the Everglades, study of environmental science, things of that nature. And then library programs, we talked about how important those are. And MLS can help understand what are the best ways to help a little child learn the very basics of reading, and what are the very best ways to help a school-age student get some enrichment in STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So we really feel like that professionalism is important, and that's supported by a whole staff of other library staff who are supporting and making sure those programs happen every day.
Yeah, 'cause I was curious, I'm always a cost-conscious person, and we're dealing with city dollars, which is citizens' dollars, and everybody pays their taxes. And just simple math, when I broke it down, it was costing about $305 per hour to operate the library. And I thought that was a little high. I don't understand all the costs that are involved, but um, maybe you can maybe explain a little bit about that. Uh, $305 an hour seems like an awful lot of money to run a library when you have no expense and rent, you have no utility costs and things like that. And all we would be doing is passing that savings along on to our citizens as well. So is there a cost breakdown um, for that $305 per hour that it costs to run the library?
Absolutely. So we do look at library systems across the country that are similar size, similar demographics to look at what's the appropriate pricing, price per materials. And in this case, I think part of it is just have to look at what's in that number. So at the request of the city, we've thrown in like janitorial, security, IT. Typically, those items are typically segregated out and provided by the cities or counties separately from the library system. So there, from an apples to apples perspective, we use best practices to come up with our pricing.
Mayor, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
One,
Any other-
Mayor, one
Go ahead.
add-on to that would be, typically, your expenses compared to some of the county and city governments tend to be lower. Could you explain how that is? How are you able to do that cheaper than government?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the benefits to our customers is that the way I describe it is we're just the largest library consortium in the country. So what that brings to you basically is best practices, but also efficiencies. Because as most library systems are constructed, they kind of replicate each other over and over again, from back office support to the way they manage their collection and perform, I would say, back office functions versus the patron-facing functions. So we understand that. So because of our size and our breadth, we're able to provide those services at a higher level so that the local employees really can just focus on customer-facing activities and not have to be in the back of the house or not engaging with the patrons. So that's a large part of it. Our material purchasing, we're the largest purchaser of materials in the country, books and other items. Because again, we buy for all of our library systems. So when you're starting to buy $7 or $8 million worth of materials, the book distributors give you much better discounting. So you get the benefit of that as well.
Councilwoman Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. That's funny, I did the math on that too with the hourly, but more because I would like to see longer hours. Um, so I just had a quick question as far as the additional hours. You guys have it in increments of 5 hours, and there's a pretty big gap between 60 and 70 hours. Does that have to do with needing extra personnel?
Correct. Yeah,
Because of
that's the
going
jump off
over?
point where suddenly you have to really increase staffing. And then obviously it tapers after that because the next 10 hours is, is incremental compared to that one point.
Yeah, we do not have a nice book, or we don't have a bookstore here. That's probably the only thing I miss from Kendall. Um, but that would be my only thing is to try and get some longer hours. Maybe tweak the schedule a little bit to allow for some longer evenings on weekends. Give the kids some other options on places to be. I had a few questions about programming, but I really loved everything that I saw. Um, as an educator, I loved the idea of branching out and doing something different, but we also need to hold on to that great idea of just physical paper books. So I really like that you pay good attention to the books that you have and also offer all the great programming. You would have themed, for example, with my preschool, we can rent or we can borrow these themed, what are they called? You could get different bulk items to borrow for a school. You have different programs that you offer for schools to be able to borrow on certain topics. Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
So a very well-run library is always in partnership with schools. Our library staff builds relationships with local schools, teachers and administrators. So the more interaction and the more collaboration that happens, the better it is for our communities and for our students.
Great. Field trip opportunities, all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councilman Roth.
Thank you, Mayor. And, Councilwoman Bailey brings up a good point. We do not have a bookstore in the area. Is there a potential to monetize part of what you do into the retail end of it so that it answers the question of expanded hours? Now you've got a reason to keep the library open longer because not only are you allowing people to come in and view material, take material home with them, but they have a reason to purchase the material as well. I don't know if it works in a business model. I don't know. But it's absolutely a brilliant idea, I think, to to expand the hours with no cost to our citizens, but add the retail component of having sales along with it to, compensate for the extra hours. So, I never think about that. A lot of stuff's available online. We do a lot of reading here, and books are great, and I have a great library at my house. But um, that's just a beautiful point. I'm glad you brought that up because that's something really to look at in the future. We don't have a bookstore in this area. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is that something that's ever been looked at as a model? I mean, you guys obviously are across the country. Is that something that is a possibility? Does it work? Does it not work? You can.
Yeah, so it's absolutely a possibility. And I think one of the benefits of working with a firm like ours is that we explore all of those items, where a lot of traditional library systems aren't as open to the concept. But yeah, we have, whether it's retail shops, whether it's restaurants, anything that, again, there's nothing wrong with some revenue generating activities that help to offset the free materials that you have for your patrons.
Yeah, and if I may interject, I mean, that area is going to be a nightlife area. I mean, with the movie theater, the bowling alley, and then you have that dark space in the evening that could be utilized for other things, in addition to the library services that are offered. So it opens up a whole optimistic potential for something else to evolve out of that. So that's great, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, if on that point, if there is a consensus for us to explore that, Landmark right now is kind of arranging all the space, and if that's something that you're interested in, we can figure out how to apportion a percentage of the space to some sort of a bookstore component, probably on the street level side, because there is a window there on one portion that was going to be some sort of retail anyway. So if they're amenable to that concept and you like that, we can explore that for when we come back with the final design.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea to look into as well. I think that's one of the things that this community has wanted for a while. I mean, there was some retail stores that went in, and the promise at one time was to put a bookstore there, and ultimately they determined that our population didn't justify one or wouldn't support one. And so I think it would be great to find a way to bring that to this community. So,
And I can promise you a bookstore. I just can't promise that it'll be profitable.
but I think it's. I mean, does anybody object to them looking into that as a concept, adding that to this concept? No.
Okay, great.
And then, you floor done,
Good,
Councilman Roth?
thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
Councilman
thank you.
Maldonado.
Yeah. I thought that, Mr. Manager, that wasn't this a part of when we took our field trip and we're talking, when I was a part of the trip that we made to look at some of the partnerships with Landmark and Microsoft and stuff like that. But there was a conversation about retail space or something like that. So I would assume that was already there.
And one of the concepts we had looked at was Amazon is starting to do some bookstores of their own. So I think that's been something that's been interesting to us, how we could do that without, being responsible for, it's a business. So, but if if LS&S is interested in exploring that, that may be a way to do this thing in a way that's, a little more cost effective.
And my question is more of, I'm more interested in somewhat of the detail of how they're going to integrate with Landmark and the Cyberry concept. There was talk of how, and they started off with the showing of the Tree of Life, and it kind of goes all the way up, and so, if we're talking about, and kind of sparked this thought where if they're going to be closed at certain times, is the other Cyberry going to be open at other times? How do they work together? I'd be interested in hearing some of that. I don't know if that it's now. I don't think it's now, but at some point I'd like to hear about that.
Ideally, we would like the Cyberry to be open around the same times as the retail center surrounding the facility is. So that before the movies, during the movies, after the movies, somewhere around when you come, you go to the restaurant first, you go, very similar to the old Barnes and Noble concept. So that's our dream. Whether we get to that place at phase one or whether it's all part of phase two, that really just comes down to funding. So it's going to be a combination of how many hours can we afford to buy, and that'll be based on our current funding sources and whatever potential grant opportunities there are out for us. So we can be open in phase one as many hours as you're willing to buy. That's no problem with that. Landmark anticipated much longer hours during your prime times, Friday nights, Saturdays, Sundays, because there's a profit center to Cyberry as well.
Correct.
So obviously you'd want to be open those times where people are there to spend money.
Yeah, so as soon as we get any other information on that, I definitely would like to be kept abreast on that.
Sure.
Thank you. That's it.
Any additional comments or questions from council? No? This is a public hearing. I'll open it up to the public. Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Ayes carry. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Tab 4.
Yeah, yeah.
Tab 4, yes, please.
Mayor, staff recommends the mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for employee uniform rentals with Centus Corporation. Agreement cost is to be within departmental budgets. This agreement will expire October 31st, 2023, with the option to renew for 2 additional 2-year periods upon mutual written consent of both parties. This is in accordance with IBEW Agreement Article 13.2AB. The city is required to provide uniforms to union employees.
Any comments from council? Moved and seconded. Quick question, well, the city attorney left. Do I need to open each one of these up to the public as well? Is that how we've been structuring this?
I'm sorry, what's
Do I need to open each one of these items up to the public?
James?
They comment on each one, but you can introduce all of these and then take comment at the end if you'd like.
Okay, I'll do comment each time this time, and then we can figure out if there's a faster, more efficient solution next time. So, okay. Then I'll open this one up to the public. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. We had a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Ayes carry. Tab 5.
September 26, 2018, council awarded ITB 201808 to Flanders Electric Motor Service, Inc. for the reconditioning and rewind of generator number 21 for a total of $410,333. During the disassembly and inspection of the unit, it was discovered that the rotor had endured significant damage due to generator failure, requiring additional work during the rewinding process. This consists of removing the complete generator assembly and transporting it to the vendor's facility to complete the repairs, and then reinstallation of the generator back at the power plant. Generator 21 is one of the largest energy producing units at the Gordon Ivy Power Plant and is a critical component for a citywide power generation. Staff recommends Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to approve an amendment to existing purchase order number 190330 issued to Flanders Motor Service, Inc. for an additional $231,247.77 for a total of $641,580.77.
Any comments or questions from council? Seeing none, this is a public hearing open to the public. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Not a whole lot of ayes, but we'll say it carried. Tab 6.
On August 22, 2018, council authorized an agreement with Downs Associates, Inc., car number 2397, to produce an RFP and assist with reviewing and evaluating a maximum of 8 responses for future power supply resources for a total of $38,850. In response to the solicitation produced by Downs, the city received 26 responses, exceeding the original 8 that were contracted for. As a result, Downs Associates has offered a proposal to review and evaluate the additional responses for an additional $9,330. Staff has reviewed the proposal and is in agreement that the increased charges are warranted based on the additional time and effort needed to evaluate the large number of responses. Staff recommends Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to approve an amendment to existing purchase order number 183014 issued to Downs Associates, Inc. for an additional $9,330 for a total of $48,180.
Any comments or questions from council? Seeing none, open the public hearing. Any comments or questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Tab 8. No, tab 7. Tab 7.
Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing city manager to sign the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Homestead and International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers for the term of October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2020. During the terms of this agreement, the bargaining unit employees will receive a 2.5% cost of living adjustment in the first year of the agreement and a 3% cost of living adjustment in the second year. Year one increase will be effective retroactive to 10/1/18, and year two will take place on 10/1/19. No changes were made to benefits. There were some language changes made throughout the agreement in addition to a minor increase to the tool allowance afforded to the auto mechanics and the addition of a supplemental training period for police dispatchers.
This is a public hearing. I'll open it up to the public. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Tab 8.
Mayor, staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Homestead and the Police Benevolent Association for lieutenants for the term of October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2020. During the terms of this agreement, the bargaining unit employees will receive a 2.5% cost of living adjustment in the first year of the agreement and a 3% cost of living adjustment in the second year. Year one increase will be effective retroactive to 10/1/18, and year two will take place on 10/1/19. No changes were made to benefits. There were some language changes made throughout the agreement. The COLAs will be applied across the board to non-bargaining employees for both years.
This is a public hearing. I'll open this item up to the public. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Tab 9.
Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing city manager to sign the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Homestead and the Police Benevolent Association for police officers, detectives, sergeants, and correction officers for the term of October 1st, 2018 through September 30th, 2020. During the terms of this agreement, the bargaining unit employees will receive a 2.5% cost of living adjustment in the first year of the agreement and a 3% cost of living adjustment in the second year. Year one increase will be effective retroactive to 10/1/18, and year two will take place on 10/1/19. No changes were made to benefits. There were some language changes made throughout the agreement in addition to the incorporation of a fifth step for the corrections officer's salary schedule.
Councilman Roth for a question or comment?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to staff, HR, everybody working together to get these agreements done. This was probably the easiest one that I have gone through, and I think everybody worked well together and got this thing put together for us. And I just want to say thank you to everybody, the PBA, the IBEW, for coming together and working with us, and we worked with you. And thank you for everybody who participated in this negotiation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. I'll open to the public. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Tab 10.
Staff recommends Mayor and Council authorize the city manager to award ITB 201903 pest control and exterminating services to Hewlett Environmental Services in the amount of $9,180. The terms of the agreement will be from March 1st, 2019 through September 30th, 2021, with an option to renew for an additional 2 years on a year-to-year basis upon mutual written consent by both parties. Hewlett Environmental Services will furnish all labor, equipment, and materials for the control and extermination of all pests, insects, and rodents in all city facilities. They wanted to be clear about the definition of pests, and that's why they have insects and rodents on there.
This is a public hearing. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve it? Moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Tab 11.
The City of Homestead has been awarded a grant from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Land and Water Conservation Fund for a new playground as part of the Losner Park expansion project. This grant requires $200,000 in matching funds, which will come from the Parks and Recreation impact fees. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant of $200,000 for a new playground at Losner Park from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Land and Water Conservation Fund, and to execute the contract once available. And thank you to Dennis and his staff for finding some free money.
This is a public hearing. I open it for a public. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve? Yes. Councilwoman Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. Great job on the 2 grants. That's awesome. There's another one coming up here. So just a quick question as far as what they've asked. I didn't see any details. Would landscaping and other items also be included? Because I think the total would be 900,000 with the grant and our matching.
Councilwoman, what the grant does, and we also got another one coming up, what this is going to cover is only the playground equipment. So all the equipment that the playground has, that's what it's covered. It won't cover no landscaping.
So $900,000?
You're looking, what we'll do is we're given 200,000 and we match the 200,000. So you'll get 400 and you get the other 250 in that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry, but then the next one that's coming up was 250,000.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's a total of 900,000? Am I not looking at it right?
You're looking at the 4 is for the first one. You'll spend it, what it is you'll spend the 200,000. The grant will give us the $200,000 back.
Oh, okay. I thought
We'll
we had
spend
to spend a total of
250,000. The
400,000.
grant will give you 250,000 back.
I was going to say that's going to be a very impressive playground.
Al-
Okay, thank you for clarifying
Also,
that.
if I could add that when we look at the Losner Park project, we're looking at all our funding sources with the vast majority of being from park impact fees. So it's when we come back with the final construction numbers, you're going to see line items, park impact fee, and then grants, which is a bunch of money. We're adding this to the pile, plus he's got some others in line we're hoping to get. So it'll be a kind of, we have the grants, there's plenty of the park impact fee monies likely for any application that we submit. We'll be able to match with the park impact fees that will go to the overall project. And the playground piece, they'll just meet the criteria for the grant, but it's with a $12 million project, they'll be able to find ways to fit these monies into some piece of the overall puzzle.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Did I get a motion in a second yet? Clerk, no? Do I have a motion in a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Tab 12.
City of Homestead has been awarded a grant from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program for a new playground as part of Losner Park expansion project. This grant requires $250,000 in matching funds, which will come from Parks and Recreation impact fees. Staff recommends Mayor and Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant in the amount of $250,000 for a new playground at Losner Park from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program, and to execute the contract once available.
This is a public hearing. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Tab 13.
Ms. Martha Arden is requesting the mayor and council authorize the city manager to approve a waiver of usage fees in the amount of $225 for the use of one room at FICO Williams Community Center on Mondays, March 4th, 11th, and 18th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., and on Saturday, March 9th, 16th, and 23rd from 10 to 11 a.m. In addition, Ms. Arden would like the city and the community center to promote attendance to the workshops of the local media news leader. Ms. Arden would like to conduct 6 free one-hour workshops in order to assist ex-felons in South Dade to register to vote. The workshops explain what ex-felons have to know to become eligible to register after incarceration, satisfactorily serving probation or parole, completing all financial obligations of the sentence, including restitution fees, fines, etc.
Quick question. I know when we originally were doing the waiver of fees, I mean, didn't we have it as a condition that you had to be a not-for-profit, or did we get away from that?
Mayor, we did set that you had to be a non-for-profit.
Right, and is this particular applicant a not-for-profit? It looks
No,
like it's an individual versus a not-for-profit. Okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Councilwoman Bailey.
But even though she's not a nonprofit, she is doing this for the community, correct? She's not asking for a fee for attendance? Okay. Personally, I think it would be a good thing to have. My opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Roth.
I'm all for it too, but I don't like the addition of the city and the community center actually paying advertisement for the event, as it states here for local media and the news leader. So I don't know how we work that part out. I don't know if anybody's got any suggestions about that, but they're asking for us not to charge them anything, but they're asking us to pay for marketing of their program. So I'm not sure how that all works out. I'm all for what they're trying to do. It just shouldn't be at the expense of the taxpayers for that.
So Mayor, if it's the will of the council, then we're happy to just eliminate that portion of this direction.
What was, I missed the actual request.
Well, they're in here, they're asking the city, in addition, they would like the city and the community center to promote attendance of the workshops through local media and the news leader, which to me would imply that they want us to market their program for them, which I don't think that that's a good idea. I'm all for what they're trying to do, but I don't think we should pay for any of that stuff.
We can take that as direction if there's no concern. We can eliminate that from.
Well, it concerns me too about the not-for-profit thing too. That's something that we've always, I don't know how they're being sponsored or if they're being, what they're doing. I mean, I get that they want to educate people on being registered to vote. I understand all that part. I'm just not sure where we go from there. Just because we have a president that said when we asked that they be not-for-profits and their events be free, basically. This is a free event, but it's not a not-for-profit, so I don't understand. There's a confusion here for me. So I'm willing to do whatever anybody thinks is good. I just don't want us to have to pay for marketing and advertising for them.
All right, so then your request would be that, that portion be pulled?
Yes.
Is the council okay with that as a majority to pull the marketing and advertising portion of it? Okay, yeah, so I think we have a majority to pull that part out of it, and then we can continue the discussion on the overall issue without that issue.
Great. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Do you have anything else, Councilwoman Bailey, that you, okay. Any additional comments or questions from council? No? It is a public hearing. I'll open this to the public. Is the person here who is asking for the waiver of fees, because that's usually another thing we usually ask, is that they be here to explain. Excuse me?
We did call him, Mayor, to tell him that he would have to be here.
Okay, so they're not here as well. I don't know if it's something you guys want to defer. Do you want to hear from the applicant, the person asking for the waiver, or move it forward?
We don't have to put it on the consent agenda. We can just have it on the regular agenda. Or we can pull it completely. If your policy is a hard no, don't bring anything that's a nonprofit to the agenda, we can start implementing that if you'd like. It's totally your call. We don't really have a relationship with this person, so I can't vouch for her one way or the other. So, another option would be if independent council members want to provide the funding for that, that would be an option as well. So you just give us direction on how you want it to handle, and we'll do it.
Councilman Maldonado.
Yeah, I think the idea is noble, what they're doing. I think it's just a precedent of it's a for-profit because, like everything else we've always approached it. The minute that we allow one, we have to allow the rest. And so what else is this a mechanism for them to gain data and, on the city's dime or something like that for other businesses? I'm not saying this one, but I think it's something that I'm thinking it'll open the doors. So I'm not really in favor. Again, the idea is noble. The for-profits was the same thing that I had an issue with.
Thank you, Councilman. So I think we have three options from what I hear. One is we can defer this item to the council meeting. It just goes on as a regular item. We can decide not to move forward in the public capacity, and we can all decide that they can come and request monies from us individually like we've had with others. So what's the will of the council? Defer? All right, so is the will then to defer this item as an agenda for the next council meeting? It goes on in its raw form, or do you want it to come back at a cow? Councilwoman Bailey.
Thank you. I think then we should consider having it only be not-for-profits, and then depending on the area or coming to speak with us individually, then maybe that would be something that we would, specifically, this is something I would like for my area, and I see myself bringing it up at the SWAC meeting, and that's something that they would be on board for. So I think it would get hairy if we do allow this through the council meeting, that, what's their background. I read her letter, and it does sound great, but you never know if it's not a nonprofit.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion.
So then we can defer it kind of indefinitely, and then the recommendation would be for her maybe to come speak with you, and then you could bring it to the SWAC and maybe potentially have a funding source from there.
That would be great.
And
I
if-
actually reached out to her a week ago, and I haven't heard back. So, and this is before I even saw this.
Okay. Is that consensus for council? Everyone's okay with that? All right, so I think that's the
By
direction.
deferral, I'm assuming that means we'll remove it from the agenda, and unless
Yes.
we hear anything otherwise, we
yes.
won't bring it back.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tab 14.
Staff recommends mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing city manager to purchase a new FATS portable upgrade package and Blue Fire weapon simulator for the Homestead Police Department from Megit Training Systems, Inc. for a total of $62,793.41. Funds from the fiscal year 2018 COPS Office Stop School Violence Grant awarded to the HPD will be used to cover the cost for purchasing the new system.
This is a public hearing. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Councilman Maldonado.
To staff, to Colonel, is this have you guys been training on this type of scenario outside of Homestead, or have we had a system here and we just upgrading?
Councilman Maldonado, we presently have a FATS machine, but it's very outdated.
Okay.
We're just catching up with technology now with the shoot, don't shoot training simulator here by purchasing this equipment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So no other questions or comments from council. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move it.
Moved and second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Tab 15.
Staff recommends mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing city manager to purchase and install a fourth dispatch console and associated radio equipment for the Homestead Police Department from Motorola Solutions for a total of $46,208.05. This purchase is in accordance with Broward County Sheriff Contract 12-29077JHJ and NASPO Contract 06913.
This is a public hearing. Any questions or comments from the public? I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Tab 16.
Staff recommends mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing city manager to purchase 20 workstations and 25 monitors for the Homestead Police Department from CDWG for $31,855. This purchase is in accordance with the state of Florida contract 432-11500, WSCA 15 ACS. Project is part of the city's capital improvement plan, CIP 0662.
Open it for public hearing. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Seeing no questions or comments from council, do I have a motion to approve? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Tab 17.
Staff recommends mayor and council approve the attached resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an off-system construction and maintenance agreement with Florida Department of Transportation as part of the Campbell Drive Truck Bypass Project. Since the new Campbell Drive Truck Bypass Project is located within the Homestead city limits, this agreement is needed in order to allow the Florida Department of Transportation to work on city-owned roads, relocate landscaping to other parts of the city, and relocate the city-owned lift station located on US 1 and Campbell Drive. Costs for these various projects will be absorbed by the Florida Department of Transportation.
I could give you a quick update on what the schedule is, I guess, on the beginning of that truck bypass. Do we know approximately when they may break ground?
I'm not sure that we do. We don't know when they're going to break
Well,
ground.
I know that their 100% construction plans are getting ready to put it out for bid. This was one of the things they needed from the city because of it being in the city limits, and they're relocating the lift station and the landscaping. I can call them tomorrow and then send you all an email and update when they want to start, but I know they want to get this going very fast.
I wasn't sure whether we had to wait for the completion of the current Chrome Avenue widening before they would start on the bypass, or or whether or not they had already acquired the land on Campbell Drive, because I know that was one of the big holdups as well at one time, was acquisition, right-of-way space. So yeah, any updates there would be great, just so we have an idea, we can let people know when they think that might actually happen. It's been a long time coming.
Just to let you know, Mayor, I did the utility schedule for Campbell, and I just finished the one in Chrome. So Campbell's going to be before the Chrome Avenue one, just to let you know.
Meanwhile, whatever date we give you, it'll be reciting what date they told us, we're not promising anything, because
No, I
that's
completely
beyond our
understand that.
control.
But I at least want some sort of, tentative time frame. I've got a couple questions about it, especially as we're starting to talk more about downtown finally coming to life. That's a reoccurring question. Well, when are these trucks going to go away? And
That was more
it'd
for
be
the
nice to
vice
give 'em
mayor than anybody, just to make sure
Any other questions or comments from council? It's a public hearing. I'll open it for a public. Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Tab 18. So tab 18 is my item. So it's kind of an update related to the Northwest vacancy. As I think we get an update at the last council meeting, kind of set forth the process that we were all going to follow moving forward. So one of the things that we did do is circulate some questions so that we have some uniform questions across the board for all the candidates to respond to make sure that they all could respond to and be asked the same subject matters. That was followed by an interview process that I did with all of them this past Friday. So I've had a chance to sit down and have some face-to-face time with all the candidates and ask them some expansion questions on either concerns that I might have had from the answers to their questions or clarifications where I didn't have clarity on exactly what their position may have been. And so what I wanted to do today was, one, update you guys to let you know kind of where I am in the process. The code requires me to make a recommendation to you guys as a body to then be brought forth. I think the plan is at the next council meeting next Wednesday. And so I will do that in accordance with the code. However, before I did that, I wanted to at least have a public forum in which my colleagues had a chance to potentially weigh in on any questions they may have or any opinions they may have, whether it be specific to a candidate or more so philosophically, is there anything that we're specifically looking for as a body? I know I've sat in the audience one time and watched this process play out before, and in that case, I don't think there was much feedback or involvement by the council, and it kind of got a little interesting on the dais, and so I wanted to make sure that I did have an opportunity here to get some feedback from my colleagues before I ultimately, by code, have to make some sort of a recommendation. So with that, Councilman Roth.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to comment on the actual applicants to the process, but I do want to thank you for your transparency in allowing us to be a part of this transition. It's going to be a challenge for us, although it's a short time that we got to deal with it, but I think the proper selection is going to be important for what we're doing and carrying us forward. But I do want to thank you for your including all of us in this whole process. It's very admirable. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Burgess.
Thank you. That's Vice Mayor Burgess, by the way.
Vice Mayor. I'll get it right by the next meeting. I'll put a note here, like a note card.
I guess, what I'm looking for, I guess you're trying to figure out what our feelings are towards a candidate that you're to be brought forward. What we're looking.
Yeah, not necessarily maybe specific to the candidates themselves, although if someone has a strong opinion about a candidate, I mean, you're free to express that.
I'm not here to speak about any particular candidate tonight, but I just think, this body, I've been through here, and I sat through the last time we had an appointment, and that was a tough time, and it took a unit of people that worked together and split them into two units, and we didn't get a lot done after that. There was a body of 3.5 one way, 3.5 the other way. It really was divisive. So I think that hopefully this process here is much more open and won't be that way. But I think one of the most important things to me as we move forward with this city is having somebody that can fit into this unit and not be disruptive and understands what a council person really does. And that's not the day-to-day running of the city. It's not calling employees and telling them what to do. It's not about things for them. It's about things for the city. And I think that's the most important thing for me, is that hopefully whoever you bring forward understands that and can abide by those rules that are actually set in our charter, about the day-to-day things and what we're allowed to do and not to do, is that hasn't always been the case here. Fortunately, over the last 6 or 7 years, that has pretty much been the case, and you can see the difference in how the city is run, the employees and how they're much more comfortable and not on edge all the time. And I think that we've got to make sure whoever we bring in and can follow along and make sure that that's what, proceeds down the highway, because we've got a lot of things going. Two of the biggest projects, again, tonight, that we've moved forward on. And, we've got to have somebody that shares in that vision, too. Not everybody in the city understands the vision, where we're going, or what our goals are. So we've got to make sure whoever comes into that seat understands the goals of the city and that. And I guess one thing that I would like to see is, I don't know what your plan is for next week, if you're going to ask for a vote or not, but I think one thing that I would like to see is that we all get a chance to speak to your designee, I guess, and see and do that. I think that would make me much more comfortable, and perhaps you bring two names forward or something, or whatever you choose. But I think that for me, I would like to be able to speak to somebody before I just go yes or no. Several of the applicants, I have no knowledge of their city participation or anything like that. So I think that would be, and if they were one of the names to come forward, it would be difficult for me to vote yes on somebody that I'm not even aware of what their thoughts or what their process is and what they believe in for the city. So that would just be something that I would like for you to consider. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. And I think I have before, I do encourage all of you to interview, or feel free to reach out and interview any of the candidates. That's one reason why I did the questionnaire, was because I wanted something tangible that I could then provide to you guys, at least as a base to go from for knowledge base. And so I do encourage any of you guys to reach out to any and all of them, or as I make a selection, which again is required by the code, feel free to make any interviews of that. And then obviously, if you guys need more time, that's also okay as well. I mean, I'm trying to do what I have to do by the code, so I'm following the rules that we've all put into place. But obviously, my goal is to have us work through this together. And so some of the comments that Vice Mayor Burgess made were very well taken and kind of in line with my own way of thinking, which is trying to find somebody who has philosophically is in line with what we've been, because we've worked so hard over the last 8 years on some of these major projects, and find someone who's looking to continue that progress and is excited about that progress, but also will fit with all of us, and we'll all be able to work together and continue to work together in a cohesive fashion like we have successfully over time. So all very well good points, and I thank you, Vice Mayor, for making those and bringing those to the table. So, any additional discussion on this item? Councilman Maldonado.
Yes, just time-wise, I mean, ideally, we'd want to, knock this out for the next meeting. So from the point taken of Vice Mayor Burgess in regards to, maybe having a time to meet with those applicants, I think that the right thing to do, I mean, speaking for myself, I'd like to speak to each one of them and ask some similar questions, or have just a talk with them in regards to what their thought process is, and why, just get some more information from them. So I'm wondering if I'm hoping that I get enough time to meet with them, and so I'm going to work. I have my staff reach out to them and see if we can set up something in the next couple of days. But if not, what if we didn't, for some reason, feel comfortable as a council to meet on this Wednesday to make that decision or on the recommendation? What's kind of the follow-up process, or any other special call meetings or anything like that? What's kind of the backup plan that you have in mind?
So a lot of this is dictated by the charter itself and by the code itself, which sets forth a time period in which all these things have to be done. Technically, I should have made my recommendation last week, but I chose to hold off because, again, I wanted to have this opportunity to have a public discussion with my colleagues. So I'm kind of under the gun to make a recommendation, and then after that recommendation, there's a certain period of time that the next council meeting, there has to be a decision. Well, it has to be brought before the next council meeting for the ratification by the council or additional action. So this would be a question more for the attorneys, that if my colleagues ultimately determined that they wanted more time before the next council meeting, is there a mechanism for that?
Well, the code provides that at the mayor's request, the council shall approve his appointee at the next regular council meeting or a special meeting of the council called within 14 days of the mayor's proposed amendment, the proposed
Recommendation.
nomination. So if you're not comfortable, there's no time, there's a mechanism for a special call if that is something that you all feel that you need, that's built into the code. You have 2 weeks then from the date you made your nomination.
So,
So 14
there is
days
some
from the
mechanism
nomination.
potentially there, yes.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of my thought, just as a council, you know, it says there, if, let's say for some reason we didn't agree with it and the council want to have a discussion more time, you know, I want to know what the mechanism was, so, okay. Oh, okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah, and for my purposes, my goal is to work with you guys to pick the right person and make sure everyone's comfortable with it, because again, they're going to be a part of our team. So if the legal guys will let me do it, then I'm going to work with you guys at whatever time frame is necessary. So.
Is there any other moment in when we could, like, I guess, you know, with sunshine, everything, you know, we have to have a meeting, so there's no other, never mind.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, tab 19. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Good evening. At the October 17th, 2018 City Council meeting, the council requested that staff bring forward for discussion City Code Section 3047D2, which is the changes to an approved site plan section. So the code allows site plan changes to be done either as a minor change or as a major change. And that determination is made by the Development Services Director so long as specific criteria is met under the minor change. And that criteria, I apologize. A building can change in building size up to 5% in total floor area, which is really the topic of discussion for this item. There can be a relocation of buildings or other structures by no more than 10 feet. There can be a replacement of plant materials specified in the landscape plan with comparable materials of equal or comparable size, provided that the changes reflect an upgrade to the original approved plan. Changes in floor plans which do not alter the character of the use or require an increased parking requirements, and engineering revisions such as drainage, water and sewer, et cetera, of a technical nature that do not impact other aspects of the approved plan. If a modification for a site plan doesn't fit into those 5 categories, then the Director of Development Services will categorize that as a significant change, which thereby the council will review that change. So at the December Committee of the Whole meeting, we discussed code provisions throughout Miami-Dade County, which look at minor changes versus major changes. And what the county and what most cities do is they really let the Development Services Director make that determination. There is no actual nominal threshold. At the last discussion, the council requested that we also look at cities in Broward. And so Dania Beach, for example, has a 2.5% threshold or 1,000 square feet, whichever is greater. So if you have a modification to a site plan that doesn't meet that specific criteria, then it would go to the town council for discussion. Lauderdale by the Sea and Fort Lauderdale leave that determination to the Development Services Director or the town manager under specific criteria, but again, there's no actual nominal threshold stipulated in those codes. It's really a policy decision. We have nothing further to add at this time.
Okay, thank you. And if I recall, I mean, I think we kind of got into how much control to give to staff versus how much to retain from council, and that was where this kind of balance of being developer friendly versus, you know, allowing the developers to run the organization, if I remember right. That's kind of what we wanted to see how other cities had tried to manage the same problem. Councilman Roth.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, this was all brought on by, I guess, the gentleman that was here that went through a process to expand his business. And just a question, has anybody approached Development Services since then with trying to expand a property that's already in place right now that anybody's aware of?
No, sir.
And then reading through some of the other municipalities' codes, they do give development services a lot of freedom when it comes to a building that's already in place, a business is thriving, and expanding their footprint, so to speak, allowing them to expand their business and continue to service the people they service. Um, I don't know that I have to I play with myself as far as the ability to give enough freedom to them to make that decision based on somebody that's already here, that's operating a business that's functioning properly, obeys all the rules, regulations, and giving development services the ability to streamline their process of expanding their business. So I'd like to hear a little bit more discussion. This has come up several times now, and I think I'd like to just make a decision tonight and just move on with this because it's not affecting that many people at this point. We don't have a lot of people coming to us and asking to expand their businesses, and I just don't know how anybody feels about giving up some of that control. And obviously, if it's going to be something that's controversial, I'm sure that development services or somebody would step in and say, this is way too much. We need to bring it to council at this point. But if we give them total freedom, they don't actually have to do that. So I just want to hear some other thoughts and ideas. But it's not a pressing point because really nobody's coming at us right now for expansion of their businesses at this point. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion, comments?
Just want to make sure it was clear, we're not asking for anything here, so this was just brought on because of that, and
Right.
I would say I've seen it go in different directions with cities, so, but once you give up some of that authority, the downside obviously is at some point staff could make a call that the elected body doesn't like, so that's the downside, and just, so.
Well,
just wanna-
I'm okay with leaving it the way it is because right now there's nothing in the hopper. There's nobody that's being challenged like this, and maybe we can put something in place where if somebody does come and wants to do this, there's a way to help them streamline the process. I think it took him about 6 months to go through the process, and maybe he didn't quite understand the process, which is part of some of the problem. But somebody that's already here doing business, that's properly operating under the proper licenses, and everything is good with their business, it shouldn't be a hardship for them to expand inside the city. And that's the only goal I was trying to get to, is they shouldn't have to have a hardship. They're already successful, they're already doing their thing, and they get mad at us, and I don't want to be mad at us. So I just want to streamline the process for them. That's all I'm saying here. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was going to say, I think an existing building that doesn't really have a whole lot of room to expand is probably least objectionable to me. I'm perfectly fine with leaving it as is. I mean, I'm not advocating necessarily to make the change, but if the majority of the council was leaning toward a change, then this would probably be the least objectionable giving up of authority versus, say, a brand new project coming through the door. Councilwoman, Councilman Burgess.
As Vice Mayor Burgess, but yes,
Got it right once.
I
Got
will
it
say
right
it again.
once.
No. Anyway, as somebody who lived through a development services department that took administrative variances and administrative, whatever you want to call it, giveaways to the extreme, whether they were allowed or not allowed, I would prefer to leave it the way it is.
I'm good with that too.
You guys have been spoiled, the majority of you. You hadn't had to put up with some of the past shenanigans that went on in our development services before we were lucky enough to get it straightened out and get it under control. And seeing some, and it goes way back. It's not just the past development services, but it's even development services prior to that, where things were done administratively that should have never been. And I think if you give a little bit, and then they start reaching further and further, and I'm not comfortable with doing that. So I would prefer that we stay where we are. Thank you.
I'm okay with that too. I just, if it does come up in the future, and then somebody comes to either us or council or something, there's got to be a way that we can help expedite that process for them so they're not hindered for 6 or 8 months. That's my only point. Become a little bit more user friendly and help expedite some of the problems that some of these people out there face. And that's all I'm looking for. Thank you.
Councilman Maldonado.
To staff, what was, and let's take this last case, what was it that delayed them? Was it the whole process of coming before us, or was it something else on their end? Maybe to clarify?
The applicant, first and foremost, the applicant under discussion doubled their building size by 100%. So a minor deviation of some sort in the city code wouldn't have helped in that case. A lot of the issues that resulted from that application was the back and forth between these are the technical requirements as established in the city code. Maybe the applicant agreed or didn't agree, and so there was a lot of back and forth. Ultimately, they were able to open. Public hearing process is a very detailed process. There's 3 major meetings that occur, and so we have to hit all of those meetings, and so that takes time.
Thank you.
So at this point, are we of the opinion to kind of just leave things as they are? Okay. All right. So that's the official decision is leave it as is unless the issue becomes a bigger issue and then bring it back up and we can discuss it again. Okay.
Motion.
All right. That concludes the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Yes, moved by Councilman Burgess.